The battlefield drifted in silence. Debris from the Empire's proud fleet floated through the void, burning with faint orange light. Twisted metal, shattered hulls, and the cold remains of alien soldiers spun among the stars. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Empire had lost not to an equal, not to a mighty rival, but to the Terrans, the race they had mocked as weak. Across the galaxy, the news spread. Traders whispered it in marketplaces. Miners repeated it in deep tunnels. Politicians argued over it in grand councils. Everywhere the same words echoed. How did the humans do this? How did toy ships destroy an Imperial fleet? The answer was not simple. To understand, one had to know Earth. Earth was a death world, a place of storms, quakes, and predators. A planet where survival was never guaranteed, where life fought against death every second. For thousands of years, humanity had adapted. They learned to fight with limited tools. They learned to turn weakness into strength. And most of all, they learned never to fight fair. Their fleet reflected that truth. Yes, the Terran ships looked weak. Patched hulls, old frames, designs from another age. But behind that appearance lay secrets that no alien could imagine. Inside, the hulls were layers of armor built from materials no other species dared to use, dense alloys designed to withstand both atmospheric re-entry and direct bombardment. Terran engineers had turned junk into weapons, salvaging every scrap, reworking every system until it became more lethal than its original design. Their weapons, too, seemed crude. Simple cannons, heavy missiles, outdated torpedoes, but there was nothing simple about how they were used. Kinetic cannons, ignored by most of the galaxy as primitive, were pushed by Terran science to terrifying levels. A single metal slug, accelerated by railgun technology, could tear through energy shields like paper. What aliens dismissed as old and useless was, in Terran hands, a nightmare. Their missiles carried warheads designed with a philosophy alien commanders never understood. If one strike doesn't kill, then make it kill twice. Layered explosives, armor-piercing cores, and guidance systems that ignored decoys turned every launch into a death sentence. And then there were the engines. Terran ships did not glide in perfect, predictable formations like alien fleets. They jerked, twisted, spun, and lunged through space in ways that made targeting systems useless. Their engines were built not for elegance, but for survival. They were designed to push a ship to its limits, even if it meant tearing themselves apart. To an alien tactician, it looked like chaos. To a human captain, it was instinct. But perhaps the most dangerous weapon was not metal or fuel. It was the humans themselves. Every Terran officer, every soldier, every pilot carried the mindset of a survivor. They were not raised in safe, gentle worlds where danger was rare. They were raised on Earth, where storms could kill, beasts could tear flesh, and wars had shaped their history for millennia. When an alien officer saw a damaged ship, he thought, retreat. When a human officer saw the same, he thought, ram the enemy with it. When an alien ship lost half its weapons, the crew surrendered. When a Terran ship lost half its weapons, the crew doubled the fire rate with what was left. When aliens saw chaos, Terrans saw opportunity. This was why the toy fleet had survived. This was why 20 Terran ships had torn through 100 Imperial warships. The secret was simple, brutal and terrifying. Terrans fought to win, not to look strong. As the news spread, fear began to grow. In the council chambers, alien leaders shouted at one another. Some demanded an investigation. Others wanted war, but none could ignore the reports from survivors of the battle. They don't fight like us, one trembling officer said before the council. They don't fight to show strength. They fight to kill their ships. Their ships are not what they seem. They make weapons out of trash. They turn death into survival. They are monsters. The council fell silent. Even among empires that hated humanity, unease spread. If Terran scrap fleets could destroy Imperial warships, what else were they hiding? In the shadows of the galaxy, smugglers and mercenaries whispered even darker stories. They spoke of Terran ambushes, where entire convoys vanished without a trace. They spoke of battles where humans seemed to fight with impossible fury, refusing to die even when their ships were torn apart. The Empire, however, refused to show weakness. They announced to all systems that the defeat was nothing but an accident. They promised to send a larger fleet, A stronger fleet. A fleet that would prove once and for all that humanity was powerless. But the whispers continued. And deep inside, the Empire's commanders began to feel something they had not felt in centuries. Fear. On the Terran colony that had survived the first battle, people worked in silence. Ships were repaired, weapons reloaded. The admiral who had led the defense spoke to his captains. They called us toys. Let them keep calling us toys. It makes the kill easier. The Terran fleet knew what was coming. The Empire would return, stronger, angrier, with more ships and more firepower. But they did not fear it. Because Terrans had lived with storms, with predators, with wars since the beginning of their history. Another storm was just another chance to prove what humanity truly was. And this time, when the Empire came, the galaxy would learn a truth it could never forget. The Terran fleet was not weak. It was the knife hidden in the dark, and once unsheathed, it would cut through empires like flesh. The galaxy could not believe what it had seen. An Imperial fleet, powerful, disciplined, feared for centuries, had been shattered by 20 Terran ships. 20 rusty hulls, 20 toys that the galaxy had mocked. Yet the wreckage of the Empire's warships now floated in space as proof that the impossible had happened. Rumors spread faster than light. In marketplaces, traders whispered, "The humans destroyed them." Not one ship, not a squadron, but a fleet. In taverns, smugglers raised their glasses. "We told you, never underestimate Terrans. They fight like demons." Even in the grand halls of the Galactic Council, the news could not be silenced. Leaders shouted at one another, voices filled with both fear and denial. "This is lies. The humans tricked them," one alien ambassador roared. "No," said another, quieter voice. "The humans fought, and they won." Fear began to take root. The Empire had spent centuries laughing at humans, calling them weak, primitive, unworthy of respect. But now many wondered, if their toys could kill an Imperial fleet, what else were they hiding? Some species began to reconsider their stance. Colonies once bullied by the Empire looked to Earth with new hope. Smaller civilizations whispered of alliances. Mercenary guilds began raising their prices when hired against Terrans, unwilling to face them without heavy pay. But for the Empire, there was no room for fear. Only rage. The defeat had humiliated them. Their prestige, their power, their unshakable reputation, it had all been wounded. And the Empire was not a creature that tolerated wounds. From the great shipyards of their core worlds, orders rang out. New fleets were to be built. Old fleets were to be recalled. An armada greater than any the galaxy had seen in a century was being forged, all with one purpose: to erase humanity. The Imperial High Command met in secret halls, their words sharp and bitter. "We will not allow this insult to stand. They will learn their place. We will grind their colonies into dust. They cannot resist true strength. We will bring it to them." Plans were drawn. The next strike would not be a raid, not a test. It would be a war. Meanwhile, on Earth and its colonies, the humans prepared in silence. The Terran admiral who had led the defense of the frozen colony walked the decks of his flagship. His crew repaired damage, reloaded weapons, and salvaged parts from destroyed enemy ships. To Terrans, nothing was waste. Every scrap could be turned into a tool, a weapon, a shield. The admiral spoke softly to his officers. "The Empire is coming again." Larger this time. "They think numbers will save them." "Do we have enough ships to resist?" one officer asked. The admiral gave a thin smile. "We have enough to teach them fear." Across the colonies, recruitment surged. Farmers, miners, engineers all volunteered. To be Terran was to fight, to survive, to adapt. Their ships were old, but their spirit was young and burning. And slowly, very slowly, allies began to appear. A small smuggler clan offered supplies. A group of mercenaries pledged their guns. Even a few alien traders, tired of the Empire's iron fist, quietly delivered technology in exchange for protection. The galaxy was shifting. Still, fear ran deep. In the chambers of the council, arguments grew heated. Some demanded that humanity be crushed before they grew too strong. Others suggested negotiations, alliances, perhaps even respect. But no agreement could be reached. The galaxy was watching, waiting, unsure whether humanity was salvation or destruction. The Empire, however, had no doubts. From their docks rose hundreds of warships, painted black with vengeance. Their engines burned brighter than suns as they formed ranks across the void. Commanders spoke with venom in their voices. "We will remind the galaxy who rules these stars. Humanity will be erased." The armada began its march. On the frozen colony where the first battle had been fought, civilians looked up at the stars with fear. They knew the Empire would not forgive. They knew the storm was coming again, larger, darker, deadlier. But the Terran admiral stood tall on his bridge. His fleet was still small, his ship still scarred, yet his voice carried calm certainty. "Let them come," he said. "We are Terrans. We have F." The Imperial fleet entered the system with full arrogance. Their banners flashed across the stars, their ships gleamed with polished armor. Every alien commander believed the same thing. This would be a quick and easy victory. The Terran colony below was silent. No transmissions, no plea for help, no sign of defense. To the Empire, it looked like surrender. Their ships advanced in tight formation, ready to bombard the surface. But then, the first Terran signal lit up. A single short message. "You wanted to see our toys? Then watch closely." The alien commanders laughed when they saw the Terran fleet rising from orbit. Old hulls, patched engines, and strange modifications. To alien eyes, these ships looked broken, like museum relics kept alive by scrap metal. "Pathetic," one commander said. "Fire on sight," another ordered. The Empire's weapons charged. Beams of energy cut through the void. Explosions echoed across the stars. The aliens expected the Terran ships to fall apart at the first strike, but instead, the Terran ships absorbed the hits. Strange shielding patterns shimmered across their hulls. The old metal plates, reinforced with dense alloys, twisted the energy beams away. What looked like scrap was actually layered armor, ugly but nearly indestructible. Then came the counterattack. The Terran ships opened fire, but not with the sleek weapons the galaxy knew. Their weapons were brutal, primitive-looking rail cannons launching hyperdense slugs at impossible speeds. The first Imperial cruiser was torn in half. No shield stopped it. No armor resisted it. The kinetic force was too much. The ship exploded in seconds, shocking the entire fleet. "Impossible," one alien shouted. Those are toy ships," another screamed. But the battle had only just begun. The Terrans had laid a trap. Their fleet, though small, moved with terrifying coordination. Old ships vanished behind asteroids, then reappeared with deadly precision. Every alien formation was shredded by focused fire. One by one, the mighty Imperial ships fell. Panic spread. The aliens realized too late the Terran fleet wasn't weak. It wasn't junk. It was a machine of war, built from desperation, forged by survival, and designed to kill giants. As the last Imperial flagship turned to retreat, a Terran voice filled the comms. "We warned you. Never mistake our silence for weakness, and never laugh at our ships again." The galaxy would never forget what happened that day. The toy ships of Earth had become the nightmare of the Empire. The destruction of the Imperial fleet spread across the stars like wildfire. Entire systems whispered the same words. The humans did it. Their scrap fleet destroyed an Empire armada. But the Empire refused to accept humiliation. They gathered everything: battle cruisers, dreadnoughts, carriers. The largest fleet in their history prepared to march toward Terran space. Their leaders promised revenge. This time, they declared, "We will erase Earth itself." When the massive armada crossed into Terran territory, the galaxy held its breath. Billions believed the end of humanity was certain. The numbers were overwhelming, thousands of ships against only a few hundred Terran war vessels. But the Terrans were ready. The Empire expected rusty hulls and outdated cannons. What they found instead was something else entirely. From behind the moons, from hidden stations, and from deep in asteroid fields, a second wave of Terran warships appeared. Not patched relics, but brand new vessels, sleek, black, and armored with alloys the galaxy had never seen. The toy ships had been bait. The true Terran fleet had been kept hidden until now. The first Terran supercarrier emerged, so massive that it blocked out the stars. Its hull bristled with rail cannons, missile batteries, and energy lances. Smaller destroyers swarmed around it, moving with deadly precision. The Empire's admirals laughed no longer. Fear rippled across their command decks. "Fire everything!" they screamed. The void lit up with chaos. Thousands of beams, torpedoes, and missiles streaked across space. But the Terran fleet didn't scatter. They advanced. Shields flared, armor cracked, but still they pressed forward. Then, the Terrans unleashed their hidden weapon. A colossal railgun mounted on the supercarrier rotated toward the enemy flagship. Energy built along its spine, glowing like a rising star. When it fired, the slug crossed space in less than a heartbeat. The Empire's flagship, miles long, covered in layers of armor, was torn apart instantly. One shot, one kill, the alien armada froze in terror. Their chain of command shattered, and the Terrans did not stop. Rail slugs, missiles, and plasma fire cut through ship after ship. The Empire's overwhelming numbers became useless. Their formations collapsed. Panic spread faster than orders could be given. The battle lasted hours. The end was absolute. When the smoke cleared, the Empire's grand fleet was gone. Burned wrecks floated in silence. Only Terran warships remained, scarred but unbroken. Across the galaxy, every empire, every council, every ruler whispered the same realization. The humans are not weak. They are Deathworlders, and their fleets are unstoppable. The Empire's rule ended that day. The balance of power shifted forever. Humanity, once mocked as toy shipbuilders, now stood as a force the galaxy could never again laugh at. And deep within their war councils, the Terrans spoke quietly among themselves. We never wanted war. But if they bring it to us again, we will end it the same way. The galaxy had many powers. The greatest among them was the Galactic Empire, an ancient force that ruled hundreds of star systems. Their fleets were vast, their weapons advanced, and their arrogance unmatched. From their high command stations, the Empire's admirals watched the edge of Terran space. For years, they had studied Earth and its colonies. What they saw only made them laugh. On their screens floated the so-called Terran fleet, ships patched with metal plates, engines that rattled with uneven energy signatures, and weapons that looked as if they belonged in a museum. Are these the famous humans? One admiral sneered, leaning back in his chair. Scrap collectors with toy guns. Their ships could barely frighten a mining drone. The officers around him laughed. They saw nothing but weakness. Small ships, rusty hulls, fleets too thin to defend even a single sector. Word spread quickly. Across the Empire, soldiers joked that humanity's navy was nothing but floating junk. Even in the Great Council, where rulers of other species gathered, the mockery grew. They call these things warships? A counselor hissed. They look like toys my children would play with. Soon, rumors spread across the galaxy. Traders repeated the words. Explorers carried the laughter from system to system. Everywhere, the story was the same. The humans are weak. Their ships are scrap. Their fleets are toys. But not everyone laughed. Quiet whispers moved through the shadowed corners of the galaxy. Whispers from old mercenaries. From smugglers who had once fought humans on distant colonies. From survivors who had escaped Terran ambushes. The whispers said something very different. They hide their strength. They fight like no one else. They never show their real weapons until it's too late. The Council ignored these warnings. The Empire crushed them under jokes and arrogance. How could toy ships defeat a fleet that had conquered half the stars? The decision was made. The Galactic Empire would prove to all species that humanity was nothing more than a noisy nuisance. A Terran colony lay close to their border, a small settlement built on a frozen world. It had a defense fleet of fewer than 20 ships. Old ships, rusty ships, toy ships. The Empire's admirals chose it as their target. We will crush them, said the commander. One strike and the galaxy will see what happens when toys stand against a true navy. Preparations began. An entire battle fleet gathered, hundreds of gleaming warships armed with the newest weapons. The soldiers cheered as they boarded, certain the mission would be nothing more than a sport. News traveled faster than their ships. Across the stars, species waited to see what would happen. Most expected the same. The Terran colony destroyed, its defenders burned in the void. But among the whispers, a different thought grew darker. What if the humans are not as weak as they look? The fleet launched. The alien commanders were certain this battle would be over in hours. They mocked their enemy in messages that echoed across the void. Prepare your toy guns, humans. We come to take your world. In Terran space, the small colony received the warnings. The people gathered in fear. The defense fleet, patched together, engines screaming, weapons from another age, took position in orbit. The captains of those ships did not laugh. They had no illusions. They knew what was coming. A storm of fire, a wall of warships that outnumbered them 10 to 1. And yet in the silence before the battle there was no surrender. No white flag, only cold, steady voices giving orders. The colony civilians watched the sky, waiting for the enemy to arrive. They thought of the rumors. They thought of the laughter, and then they thought of the whispers. Terrans never show their real strength until it is too late. The Empire's fleet cut through the stars, faster and faster. Their commanders smiled, already dreaming of victory parades. But as they approached the Terran colony, they failed to notice something strange. The human ships did not retreat. They did not hide. They waited, engines burning, guns cold but ready. The alien fleet closed in, weapons powered up. Signals were sent demanding surrender. The Terran admiral gave no answer. His ships held their line, small against the endless wall of alien warships. The Empire laughed once more. "These are toys," their commander said. "This will be over in minutes." But in the silence of space just before the first shot was fired, the humans finally moved, and the galaxy would soon learn the terrible truth. The toys were not toys at all. They were weapons built for survival on a death world. And once they awakened, nothing could stop them. The enemy came like a tidal wave. The Galactic Empire's fleet entered the Terran colony system with pride and arrogance. Hundreds of gleaming warships spread across the void, their formation perfect, their weapons charged. The Empire had crushed countless enemies before, and they believed today would be no different. At the heart of this frozen system, 20 Terran ships waited. They were small, uneven in design, their hulls scarred with rust and welding marks. Engines sputtered and shields flickered like dying candles. Compared to the shining armada that now faced them, they looked weak. Alien commanders laughed as they opened their channels. "Terrans," one voice thundered. "We see your toys. Drop your weapons. Surrender your colony. Kneel before the Empire and we may let you live." The Terran admiral gave no reply. His face remained calm, his eyes sharp, his voice steady as he gave quiet orders to his fleet. On the alien bridges, crews chuckled. "Look at them. They don't even answer. They are frozen in fear." But they were wrong. The humans were not frozen. They were waiting. The Empire grew impatient. The command was given: attack. Like a storm, the alien fleet advanced, weapons flaring to life. Energy beams cut through the dark, streaking toward the Terran line. Missiles surged forward in clouds. The void filled with light as destruction raced across space. The Terran ships moved, not with the slow, lumbering weight that the aliens expected, but with speed, sharp, sudden, unpredictable. Their engines screamed to life, propelling them in patterns no alien tactician had ever studied. They weaved, darted, and rolled through the incoming fire like predators dancing in the storm. Alien officers shouted in shock. "Impossible. They are too fast. Those engines are not supposed to move like that." The first volley from the Empire missed its target completely. The Terran fleet, once mocked as sluggish, now sliced through space with terrifying agility. And then the humans fired. From one of the smallest ships, a cannon roared. A single round of kinetic force, nothing more than a solid piece of metal launched at impossible speed, tore through the void. It struck a cruiser. The Empire expected the shields to hold. They did not. The impact ripped through the protective barrier, tore through the armored hull, and detonated deep inside the cruiser's core. A bright fireball erupted, and one of the Empire's proud warships vanished in an instant. The laughter stopped. On the Terran bridge, the Admiral's voice was steady. "Target the next one, fire." Another cannon roared. Another alien ship died. The Empire scrambled to adjust. They tried to tighten formation, tried to focus fire on the Terran ships. But the humans never stayed still. Their movements were wild, reckless, and perfectly timed. To alien eyes, it looked like chaos. To Terrans, it was art. "Why can't we lock them?" shouted an alien gunner. "They are everywhere," another cried. Missiles streaked out from the Terran fleet. They were crude with rough casings and simple guidance systems. But when they struck, they didn't just explode. They tore through the Empire's defenses, their warheads burning hotter and cutting deeper than any alien expected. A battleship shuddered as 3 Terran missiles slammed into its hull. The explosion ripped its engines apart, sending it spinning helplessly into the void before it cracked in half. Panic spread through the Empire's fleet. They are not toys, a commander shouted. They are monsters, cried another. But still the Empire pressed forward, desperate to prove their strength. Their weapons finally struck a Terran ship, ripping through its hull. The vessel shook violently, alarms screaming. Inside, the human crew did not panic. They patched the damage, rerouted power, and fought on. The ship turned, guns blazing, and tore an enemy frigate into pieces even as its own systems burned. The Empire expected surrender. Instead, they found rage. One by one, their ships fell. Every time they thought they had cornered the Terrans, the humans broke their formation, striking from angles no alien fleet had ever used. The toy fleet fought like predators, not prey. The battle became chaos. Alien ships collided while trying to maneuver. Terran cannons fired again and again, each shot hitting with brutal precision. And then, in the heart of the storm, the Terran admiral sent a single transmission to the enemy commander. His voice was calm, quiet, and cold. You called our ships toys. Look again. The alien commander stared at the battlefield in horror. Half his fleet was gone. The rest was scattered, panicked, firing blindly at enemies that refused to die. These were not toys. These were wolves dressed as sheep, weapons built by survivors of a death world, weapons that hid their true power until the moment they struck. The alien commander tried to rally his forces. He screamed orders, demanded regrouping, but no one listened. His officers stared at their screens with fear. His soldiers whispered words he had never expected to hear. Terrans, unstoppable. Terrans, demons. Terrans, deathworlders. The battle that was meant to be a display of power had turned into a nightmare. And as the flames of broken warships lit the void, one truth spread through every survivant.